Maya's staring at her phone at 11:47 p.m., typing and deleting the same message for the 10th time. I can't do this anymore. If you don't want to be with me, just say so.
Meanwhile, Ethan's lying in bed, phone on silent, staring at the ceiling, thinking, maybe I should just disappear for a few days until this all blows over.
Sound familiar? When our protective parts get overwhelmed and activated, they create destructive loops that trap couples in the very patterns they're trying to escape.
So let's go back 48 hours to see what brought Maya and Ethan to this point in which the protectors have taken complete control.
Maya and Ethan have been dating for about 8 weeks now, and we've seen how Maya's anxious protectors work overtime to keep their relationship safe, while Ethan's avoidant protectors try to maintain emotional distance for protection. But what happens when these protective parts get overwhelmed and can't manage with their usual strategies anymore? That's when they can completely take over and create what we call negative loops.
Yesterday was a particularly stressful day for Ethan. He had a major deadline at work. His dad called with some concerning health news, and he was feeling emotionally maxed out. Maya texted him around lunch asking how his day was going. Ethan's shutdown manager decided this wasn't the time for more emotional connection, and he sent back a brief, busy day, talk later.
Maya's connection-seeking part immediately noticed the change in tone. Usually, Ethan's texts are warmer, more detailed, so her analyzer part started working. That was really short. He didn't even use an emoji. Is he pulling away? Did I do something wrong? And by that evening, when Ethan hadn't texted again, her scanner part was in full alert mode. Maya then sent another text saying, I hope your day got better. Miss you.
Ethan saw the text but felt too depleted to respond with the emotional energy Maya seemed to need. And his independence manager said, I'll text her tomorrow when I can be more present. But he didn't realize that his silence was about to trigger something much bigger in Maya's system.
When Maya woke up to no good morning text from Ethan, something that had become routine between them, her analyzer part immediately started calculating. It's been almost 24 hours since he's really talked to me. This is not normal. Something is definitely wrong.
And when Maya hadn't heard from Ethan by 2 p.m., her usual protective strategies weren't working anymore. Her pursuing protector, a part that gets more intense when other strategies fail, took over. And this is when things started to escalate and both Maya and Ethan's protective parts started taking extreme measures to protect love in the only ways they knew how.
Maya texted, Ethan, I'm really confused about what's happening between us. Can you please just let me know that you're okay? I'm starting to worry.
When Ethan read this text, his monitoring manager detected the emotional intensity and sounded the alarm. His managers were already overwhelmed from yesterday's stress, so they couldn't handle Maya's emotional needs on top of everything else. His withdrawal protector, the part that shuts down all emotional access when overwhelmed, activated completely. Ethan texted back, I'm fine, just need some space to deal with work stuff.
Maya's pursuing protector read Ethan's text and interpreted, I need space as I'm pulling away from our relationship. This part's job is to fight for connection, so it immediately escalated. Space from work or space from me? Because if you need space from me, I need to understand what I did wrong. This doesn't feel like the same person I've been dating.
Ethan's withdrawal protector read Maya's response and felt completely overwhelmed. This part's strategy is to become emotionally unavailable until the intensity dies down. Ethan didn't respond at all.
And this is what we call a negative loop. It's called a loop because the same protective parts keep triggering each other in a repetitive cycle that only gets more entrenched each time. Each person's protectors keep calling out the same protectors in their partner, creating an escalating pattern that feels impossible to escape.
If you're recognizing this pattern in your own relationship and want to understand which specific protectors get triggered in these cycles, our Meet Your Inner Team assessment helps you identify how your parts show up during conflict, and you can take it for free. The link's in the description below.
By 6 p.m., when Ethan still hadn't responded, Maya's panic protector took over. This is the part that catastrophizes about abandonment. He's done with me. He probably already mentally checked out of the relationship. I knew this was too good to be true. Maya's panic protector sent a long emotional text. I don't understand what's happening. Yesterday we were fine, and now you won't even talk to me. If you're having second thoughts about us, please just be honest instead of disappearing. I'm sitting here feeling like I'm losing my mind.
When Ethan read Maya's emotional text, his escape protector activated. This part's strategy is to get as far away from emotional intensity as possible. Ethan turned off his phone and went for a long drive, thinking, maybe I should just take a few days off from this, let things cool down.
But Maya was spiraling deeper. Her critical protector, a part that attacks when other strategies fail, took over. She texted, you know what? This is exactly why I hate dating. Just when I start to trust someone, they show me exactly who they are. If you can't handle basic communication in a relationship, then maybe we're not right for each other.
This escalating loop is so painful and unfortunately so common. Both people end up feeling misunderstood and attacked, when really their protectors are just trying desperately to feel safe.
If you've ever found yourself in a similar spiral with someone you care about, let us and others know by giving this video a like. It tells others who might be stuck in these same cycles that they're not alone.
When Ethan returned from his drive around 9 p.m. and saw Maya's last text, his counterattack protector emerged. This part rarely shows up, but when it does, it fights back. Maya, I told you I needed space to deal with work stuff, and instead of respecting that, you've been sending me increasingly dramatic texts all day. I can't handle this level of intensity right now. I need some time to think.
And by 11:47 p.m., Maya was staring at her phone, her relationship-ending protector ready to send the text that would blow everything up. I can't do this anymore. If you don't want to be with me, just say so.
Meanwhile, Ethan was lying in his bed, his complete withdrawal protector planning to just disappear for a few days. Maybe if I don't respond at all, this will all calm down and we can start over.
And this completes the destructive loop cycle. Maya's pursuing protectors triggered Ethan's withdrawal protectors, which triggered more pursuing, which triggered more withdrawal. But here's what makes it a loop rather than just a one-time conflict. Each round makes their protectors stronger and more convinced that they're necessary.
When you look at Maya and Ethan's destructive loop, which protector do you recognize most in yourself? Are you more like Maya's pursuing protectors that fight for connection, or Ethan's withdrawal protectors that shut down when things get too intense? Let us know in the comments. And remember, there's no judgment here, just understanding.
Here's what's crucial to understand about these protective loops. They're not random or crazy. They're highly organized patterns where each person's protectors are trying to prevent their worst fear, but end up creating the very thing they're afraid of.
Maya's protectors are trying to prevent abandonment, but their intensity pushes Ethan away. Ethan's protectors are trying to prevent emotional chaos, but their withdrawal creates more anxiety and intensity in Maya.
And both sets of protectors are operating from old wounds and old fears. Maya's panic protector remembers being excluded and abandoned. Her critical protector learned that attack can sometimes get people to pay attention.
And Ethan's withdrawal protectors remember his mother's emotional explosions and how dangerous it felt to stay present during them. His escape protector learned that disappearing keeps everyone safe.
What makes these loops so destructive is that they reinforce themselves. After this interaction, Maya's protectors will say, see, we knew he'd abandon us eventually. We need to watch even more carefully next time.
And Ethan's protectors will say, see, emotional intensity always leads to chaos. We need to maintain even more distance.
Each person's protective system gathers evidence that their fears are justified and their protective strategies are necessary. Maya's protectors will be more vigilant about signs of withdrawal. Ethan's protectors will be more careful about emotional engagement. And the next time stress hits their relationship, the loop will activate even faster and more intensely.
If you know someone who's been caught in these kinds of escalating loops with their partner, sharing this video might help them understand that both people's protectors are just trying to keep them safe. Nobody's the villain in these cycles.
The tragic irony of protective loops is that each person's protectors create the very outcome they're trying to prevent. Maya's pursuing creates the withdrawal she fears. Ethan's withdrawal creates the emotional intensity he's afraid of.
But here's what protectors don't realize. Their extreme protective measures often create bigger problems. Maya's threat to end the relationship if Ethan doesn't respond makes Ethan want to withdraw even more. Ethan's complete shutdown makes Maya's abandonment fears feel more real and justified.
And even in their destructiveness, these protective parts have beautiful intentions. Maya's pursuing protector is saying, "This relationship matters to me so much that I'll fight for it, even if it's messy." Her critical protector is saying, "I'd rather know the truth about where I stand than live in uncertainty."
Ethan's withdrawal protector is saying, "I care about this relationship too much to say something I'll regret when I'm overwhelmed." His escape protector says, "I'd rather protect our connection by taking space than risk damaging it by staying present when I can't show up well."
These protectors develop sophisticated strategies to handle emotional emergencies. They're not random or crazy. They're highly organized protective responses that learn to activate when the usual strategies couldn't keep things safe.
The morning after the destructive loop, both Maya and Ethan wake up with emotional hangovers, feeling terrible.
Maya's protectors are saying, "See, we knew he'd abandon us eventually. We should have protected ourselves better."
Ethan's protectors are saying, "See, emotional intensity always leads to chaos. We should have maintained more distance from the beginning."
Both of their protective systems are now more convinced than ever that their strategies are necessary. Maya's protectors will work even harder to scan for signs of withdrawal. Ethan's protectors will work even harder to maintain emotional distance. And their protectors are now primed and ready for the next emergency.
And this is how destructive loops reinforce themselves. Each person's protectors gather evidence that their fears are justified and their protective strategies are necessary. Without intervention, couples can get stuck in these repeating loops that gradually erode their connection and trust.
So how do we interrupt these destructive loops? How do we help our protectors to feel safe enough to try a different approach? How do we break these patterns before they destroy our relationships? The answer lies in learning to lead from a different place entirely, from what in internal family systems we call the capital S self. When we can access our wise, calm, and connected self, we can interrupt these loops before they take over completely. And that's exactly what we're building toward in this series.
The repetitive, escalating pattern we see in Maya and Ethan's destructive loop reflects what neuroscientist Dr. Daniel Siegel calls neural pathway reinforcement. When our attachment system perceives threat, specific neural networks activate, and each time they fire together, they become more likely to fire together in the future. Brain imaging studies by Dr. Matthew Lieberman show that during attachment threats, activation shifts from the prefrontal cortex, our center for wise decision-making, to the amygdala and its connected fear circuits. This explains why Maya and Ethan's protectors make choices they'll regret later. Their brains are literally in survival mode, following well-established protective pathways. Dr. Richard Schwartz's research on protective parts reveals that these loops developed as automated responses to overwhelming childhood experiences. When a child's emotional needs trigger unpredictable parental responses, the developing nervous system creates these intense protective patterns that become encoded as default responses to similar triggers. Research on what Dr. John Gottman calls negative sentiment override shows that when couples get caught in these loops, they begin to interpret neutral or even positive behaviors through a negative lens. This explains why Maya reads Ethan's needs for space as rejection, and why Ethan reads Maya's concerns as emotional overwhelm. Their protective systems are primed to see threat. Dr. Sue Johnson's work on attachment injury shows that these escalating loops create what she terms negative interaction cycles that become self-reinforcing. Each person's protective response triggers the other's attachment fears, creating the very disconnection both are trying to prevent. Her research demonstrates that these cycles literally change brain chemistry, increasing stress hormones and decreasing capacity for empathy. The most hopeful research comes from studies on what Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett calls emotional granularity and neuroplasticity. When individuals learn to identify and name their specific protective parts and the fears driving them, it activates the prefrontal cortex and creates space between trigger and response. This awareness, combined with new experiences of safety, can literally rewire these automatic protective loops.
So let's get to the heart of it. If you see yourself in this destructive loop, whether you're more like Maya fighting for connection or like Ethan withdrawing for safety, I want you to know that your protectors aren't evidence that you're broken or toxic in relationships. They're evidence of how much your relationships matter to you and how hard your system works to protect what you love. Maya's pursuing protector has been ready to fight for love since she learned that people can disappear without warning. Her panic protector would rather create drama than sit in the uncertainty of not knowing where she stands. Her critical protector learned that sometimes you have to get loud to get people's attention. These protectors have been working overtime to make sure Maya never gets abandoned again. Ethan's withdrawal protector has been protecting him from emotional chaos since he was 8 years old, watching his mother's unpredictable explosions. His escape protector learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is remove yourself from a situation before you make it worse. These protectors have been trying so hard to keep love safe by keeping emotions manageable. But here's what's so heartbreaking about destructive loops. Both people's protectors are trying to save the relationship, but they end up threatening it instead. Maya's intensity pushes Ethan away, and Ethan's withdrawal confirms Maya's worst fears about abandonment. And the truth is, neither Maya nor Ethan wanted to end up where they did that night. Maya didn't want to be typing breakup texts at midnight, and Ethan didn't want to be planning how to disappear for days. Their protectors took them somewhere neither of them actually wanted to go. This is what makes these protective loops so painful. The protectors act fast, and they act based on old information. And by the time you realize what's happening, you're already entrenched in these behaviors that hurt the relationship you're trying to protect. If you recognize yourself in this destructive loop, please hear this. You are not too much if you're like Maya, and you're not too little if you're like Ethan. Rather, you have protectors that learn to respond to emotional emergencies in the best ways they knew how. Those protectors were brilliant adaptations to impossible situations. Maya's protectors learned that sometimes you have to fight hard for love because love can disappear without warning. Ethan's protectors learned that sometimes you have to protect love by protecting yourself from overwhelming it with too much emotion or need. But here's what I want both sets of protectors to know. The emergency is over. Maya isn't 7 years old trying to stop her dad from withdrawing, and Ethan isn't 8 years old trying not to trigger his mother's emotional explosions. They're adults now, with adult capacity to handle big emotions and repair relationship ruptures. The goal isn't to get rid of these protective parts. They're a part of what makes you passionate and protective about love. The goal is to help them understand that they don't have to respond to every relationship challenge like it's a life or death emergency. There's something in both Maya and Ethan that's wise enough to handle conflict without creating destructive loops, strong enough to stay present during difficult emotions, and loving enough to see their partner's pain underneath their protective responses. And this inner wisdom can interrupt the loop before it escalates into relationship-threatening territory. And when this wisdom that is within us is leading, something beautiful happens. Maya can express her need for connection without her panic taking over. Ethan can ask for space without his withdrawal feeling like abandonment. Their protectors can feel their feelings without their feelings running the whole show. That's what we're moving toward. Not the absence of these protective parts, but the presence of a wise self-leadership that can guide them through emotional storms without getting caught in destructive loops that hurt what matters most.
Up next, we're going to meet the parts that Maya and Ethan's protectors are working so hard to shield. Their vulnerable inner children who hold the original wounds that created all of these protective patterns. You'll learn about the exiles that carry our deepest pain and our deepest capacity for joy.
In the meantime, if you haven't watched the previous episodes in this series, we'll link the playlist here.
Subscribe and take care of your heart. And remember, you're not alone. We're all in this
Together.